Duterte! 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 Duterte!
Protests
Duterte's crimes!
Justice!
Justice for the victims of Duterte! We cannot normalize this abuse of power.
and counter-protests.
The president was forced into a plane and taken against his will to the Netherlands and into ICC.
A contrasting picture in The Hague on former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte's 80th birthday. Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Unman Paracharya. Let's connect the dots of the implications of Rodrigo Duterte's arrest. Rodrigo Duterte was arrested in March in Manila and turned over into the custody of the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Filipinos are divided down the middle. While some want him freed,
we wanted to continue the legacy of our former President Duterte. When he stepped into power, a lot of changes happened to the Philippines, and it's for the better.
Others want him to face the rigors of the law.
It's important for Pinay, Sahol, and Gabriela to stand here today to fight for the rights of the mothers who lost their children, their brothers, their fathers, and all of their family members, as well as the other civilians who lost their lives during the drug war and the extrajudicial killings under the Duterte administration. So we're here standing up for their voices, that we're not heard and we're not given a chance to face the courts, to fight for their own rights. So we're calling on the ICC to enforce the full rule of the law and to bring Duterte to justice.
Within Philippines too, public opinion is polarized.
We are here to mark Rodrigo Duterte's 80th birthday with protests. We will light candles, but the candles are not meant to greet him a happy birthday, but to remind him about the victims of extrajudicial killings.
As a Filipino, as a Davao City citizen,
As a Filipino and Davao City citizen, it pains us to see what they did to him. It was unjust. They should not have arrested him.
It's been over 4 weeks and counting. Duterte has been kept in a cell in The Hague. He faces charges of crimes against humanity for overseeing a brutal anti-drug crackdown as president for 6 years, from 2016 to 2022. He had allegedly encouraged the police to track down and kill individuals suspected of involvement in illegal drug trade. Police data shows in that crackdown, more than 6,000 people were killed. But human rights groups and the ICC prosecutor estimate that the actual number of extrajudicial killings was much more, at over 30,000. A United Nations report subsequently revealed that most of the victims were young and poor urban males. Experts say authorities could only target street-level pushers and not the big-time drug lords. A 2017 Amnesty International report reveals that police officers admitted to receiving bounties of $150 to $300 for every drug suspect killed. This created what the report described as an incentive to kill. Duterte denied all the accusations and withdrew the Philippines from the ICC in 2019. ICC first took note of the alleged abuses in 2016 and started its investigation in 2021. It covered cases from November 2011, when Duterte was mayor of Davao, to March 2019. The ICC arrest warrant says, as president, Duterte created, funded and armed death squads. And these death squads murdered purported drug users and dealers. These death squads were vigilante groups that acted as judge, jury and executioner. This video appears to have been recorded inside the plane that transported Duterte to the Netherlands. Here he can be seen taking full responsibility for his deadly so-called war on drugs.
At sinasabi pa naman sa mga pulis, military na trabaho kayo at ako ang managot. So ito na nga, for all of the whatever happened in the past, ako na yung front sa ating law enforcement pati military. Sinabi ko na, I will protect you and ako ang manalwat sa lahat. This will be a long legal proceedings. But I say to you, I will continue to serve my country like that. So be it.
And this happened on the day of his first appearance before the ICC.
On 7 March 2025, Pre-Trial Chamber 1 concluded that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte is criminally responsible pursuant to Article 25(3)(a) of the Rome Statute as an alleged indirect co-perpetrator for the crime against humanity of murder.
2 days ago, the whole world has witnessed the degrading fashion in which a former president of a sovereign country was bundled into a private aircraft and summarily transported to The Hague. To us lawyers, this would be called an extrajudicial rendition. To the less legally inclined, it was a pure and simple kidnapping.
Duterte's dramatic arrest sent shockwaves to much of the world. That's because in many of the previous cases, the prosecuted leaders were either summoned to court or arrested after a warrant was publicly issued. But that was not the case here. The warrant against Duterte was issued secretly, and he was swiftly apprehended within several head-spinning hours. Philippines' domestic politics had a major role to play in his arrest. Duterte was arrested when his relationship with current President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. had turned sour. Remember, Marcos rose to the presidency after forming a political alliance with Duterte's daughter Sara, who was elected as his vice president. But Marcos and Sara got embroiled in a political tussle, especially due to the different views about what the US and China mean for the Philippines. Although the Philippines had decided to not rejoin the ICC, the Marcos government in late 2023 quietly allowed the court's investigators to enter the Philippines. And last year, the country's House of Representatives also started an inquiry into Duterte's drug war. As soon as the plane carrying the former president took off for The Hague, Marcos Jr. claimed at a press conference that the Philippines had no choice but to cooperate with Interpol, downplaying the fact that the warrant came from the ICC. Since coming to power in 2022, Marcos Jr. had repeatedly said that the ICC has no jurisdiction in the Philippines and Philippines won't cooperate with the ICC. But as the conflict between the two most powerful political dynasties intensified and their alliance unraveled, it became clear that the ICC was the ace up the sleeve of Marcos Jr. and his allies. It was then a question of when that ace would be used. This ace card was played just 2 months before the midterm elections, presumably to discredit the Duterte family and dampen their electoral fortunes. Now, many are asking what Duterte's arrest could mean for other leaders wanted by the International Criminal Court, like Russian President Vladimir Putin and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Remember, in March 2023, ICC issued an arrest warrant for Putin over his alleged scheme to deport Ukrainian children to Russia. It issued one for Netanyahu in November 2024, citing allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed during Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. Duterte's arrest could set a precedent for their future trials. That's not to say their turn could be imminent. Far from it. Many political factors can make it extremely difficult to execute an arrest warrant, as we saw during Netanyahu's recent visit to Hungary. As a signatory to the Rome Statute, Hungary is obligated to arrest anyone wanted by the ICC. Instead, Its Prime Minister Viktor Orban welcomed Netanyahu with open arms, and Budapest announced it would begin the process of leaving the court. We must note here that the ICC that investigates and prosecutes individuals for war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide and crimes of aggression against the territory of its 125 member states cannot carry out arrests on its own. It relies on the cooperation of national governments to execute warrants, and that often rests on domestic politics and political will. Also, ICC only steps in when a country's own government is unwilling or unable to prosecute cases. Like Philippines, neither Russia nor Israel are members of ICC. Putin and Netanyahu are cautious enough to visit countries that are ICC members only when they are pretty sure they have immunity from arrest. So they are unlikely to be turned over. Nevertheless, Duterte's case shows that arrest is possible, especially once a leader is out of office, and so the threat against wanted leaders is not just theoretical. Now, going back to the extrajudicial killings, the Philippines has an abysmal track record of holding elected officials accountable. Powerful politicians routinely get away with corruption or even murder there. Over the years, successive presidents have systematically undermined, and in the case of Duterte, threatened institutions that can serve as a check on their power. Anticipating that these accountability issues could haunt him after his presidency ended, Duterte proactively appointed allies to key positions in the courts and constitutional commissions and ordered Philippines' withdrawal from the International Criminal Court midway into his 6-year term. So to sum it up, while within the Philippines, justice for past atrocities remains elusive and Duterte is still popular and even aiming for a political comeback by running for a mayoral election, there is little doubt that his arrest has brought a sense of optimism to victims of extrajudicial killings, that they will finally get justice at The Hague. In January this year, Donald Trump returned for his second term as the President of the United States. Once again, he promised to make America great again. But this time, his policies are making headlines for a very different reason. Since taking office, Trump has made sweeping changes.
Shame on Trump! Shame on Trump! Shame on Trump!
His latest decisions are believed to have shaken the foundations of American science and education. One of his boldest moves include the attempt to dismantle the US Department of Education.
But beyond these core necessities, my administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good.
Nearly half its staff are already being laid off.
February, probationary employees started getting terminated. I wasn't, and we're still not sure exactly why, but who knows. But then on Tuesday evening at 6 p.m., I was chatting with some of my friends and coworkers, and we realized that all of our laptop computers had rebooted at the exact same time. And when they turned back on, we were locked out of all of our systems, and we had a letter telling us that our entire office was being abolished.
And it doesn't stop there. Key federal science agencies like National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and NASA are also seeing major job cuts. Senior scientists are being shown the door. Many research grants have been cancelled, and universities are facing direct interference from the government. Johns Hopkins has cut jobs. Columbia University has been forced to change policies under pressure from Washington. Across the board, funding is drying up. Let's listen to what the American Association of University Professors says.
It's important to underline the cruel and cynical move of the Trump administration here. They threatened to cut $400 million in critical research on things like pediatrics and cancer. in order to force radical changes in how Columbia University is run. This is the greatest assault on the university, on freedom of autonomy of higher education from political intrusion that we have ever seen since the McCarthy period, and possibly ever.
Drug companies want to sell drugs. University health science researchers want to find ways to make it so that more people don't need them. Trump's administration has terminated and taken hostage our grants, igniting frictions around issues of free speech and discrimination.
The Trump administration has withdrawn billions in funding from premier research institutions like the National Institutes of Health, or NIH. NIH, which is the world's largest medical research funder, is now left struggling.
Well, for me personally, my NIH funding was cut, and so as of yesterday, I'm unemployed. So NIH funding for tuberculosis research, one of the largest funders of tuberculosis research in the world, I think it's going to result in increased morbidity and mortality due to TB.
Nearly 150 grants for HIV research have been terminated. That's $450 million in lost funding, directly impacting work to prevent infections and improve care.
There are specific programs that are being lost that are going to have a huge impact on specific populations, for example, the cuts to HIV funding. There also are cuts I don't understand.
One research center after another is shutting down. Scientists say progress is being reversed. Many are unsure how to continue their work or where they will go. Some early career researchers fear for their future in the United States. International students are confused about what lies ahead. Many say the US no longer feels like the best place for science or public health research. Scientific journal Nature called it an assault on science. Scientists are already looking elsewhere: Europe, Canada, and Australia. Meta's chief AI scientist, Yann LeCun, warned of a possible tech talent exodus from the United States, with Europe being a likely destination. What's happening now is being compared to the brain drain of World War II. So what happened during that time? Back in the 1930s and 40s, Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler forced many of Europe's brightest minds to flee. Scientists, doctors, and intellectuals, many of them Jewish, escaped persecution by moving to safer countries, especially the United States. That wave of migration helped transform America into a global scientific powerhouse. Back then, Europe lost many of its brightest minds to America. Now history may be reversing, with a new wave of talent leaving the US. The University of Cambridge is preparing to recruit American researchers, especially in fields like AI and biomedicine. France's higher education minister has asked universities to submit proposals to welcome US-based scientists. Aix-Marseille University in France has already launched a special program for researchers in climate science and public health. The European Commission is preparing for this shift. The European Commission is also promoting Europe's lifestyle advantages, better healthcare, work-life balance, and cultural vibrancy. President Ursula von der Leyen has proposed doubling research grants for scientists moving to the EU. Meanwhile, 10 European countries have written to the EU urging more support to attract US talent. Beyond Europe, Australia and Canada are stepping up as well. Even some Ivy League professors are now moving to Canadian universities. For example, Yale University professor Jason Stanley, who is also the author of the book How Fascism Works, is joining the University of Toronto. Stanley says the US is facing an autocratic takeover. From policy changes to funding cuts, America's scientific landscape is changing fast. And the world is watching closely as a new global shift in talent begins. That's all in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We'll see you next week with more raging issues. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us in the Delhi newsroom. This is Munmin Bhattacharya signing off. Take care and stay safe.